everyone. Welcome to Empowering Exceptional Minds, the podcast diving into neurodiversity through real conversations with parents, individuals, and professionals on challenges, strengths, and unique experiences. I'm your host, Mayan Glazer-Corin, educational therapist, ADHD educator, and ASD certified specialist. At Educational Therapy LLC, we support kids and adults with executive function and learning differences toward confidence and independence. This podcast collaborates with WIS Therapy, connecting individuals to providers and streamlining services for neurodiverse communities. Our goal is to share strategies, stories, and insights to empower families, educators, and professionals. This podcast is for informational, educational purposes only and isn't medical, psychological, or legal advice. Consult professionals for concerns. Guest views are their own, not necessarily the host's or WIS therapies. By listening, you agree neither host nor guests are responsible for actions based on this content. A quick note, for concerns about well-being or mental health, contact a doctor or professional in your area. For emergency, dial 911. Crisis text line, text 741-741 anywhere in the United States. To our listeners, welcome back to our podcast. Today we have Dr. Kathryn Satyukov. She is a child psychiatric. Am I correct? Correct?
I specialize in like adolescent psych, but I see people of all ages. I'm a nurse practitioner with a doctoral degree.
Neat. This is so cool that you guys can do this right now. You don't have to
Yeah,
be, go out through medical school and do everything.
yeah. It's an exciting time. Nurse practitioners were kind of seen as the filling the gap in healthcare between RNs. I was an RN for years and years, and I still have my license, and medical doctors. And so we're filling that need, that gap that, we don't have enough doctors in this country right now. So it's exactly the spot I'm supposed to be in. I really truly believe that.
Awesome. I love that response. Well, welcome aboard. And I'll do what I do with all of our guests, and is that I ask what you do. Well, we already know what you kind of do, but how did you get there? And really, what you do? What is like the thing that you do, right? And not just your title, but yeah, go
Yeah.
for it.
So I do both therapy and medication management. Both play a role in mental health. My specialty overall is mental health. I'm a mental health nurse practitioner. Right now, I'm doing private practice, but I've done inpatient psych care for adolescents in the past. I was a surgical nurse for years and years before I got here, and I was feeling burnt out. I needed a change, and that's one of the amazing things about nursing. You could switch gears. So I went back to school and I became a psych NP, and I love it. It's absolutely where I'm supposed to be at this point in time in my life, and I highly recommend it to people that are interested in maybe changing things up who are nurses already and trying something new. I never, ever would think that I would have gone into this specialty if you had asked me at the beginning of my nursing career, not in a million years. And it's pleasantly, surprisingly amazing. And I can't, talk about it, like, say enough good things about it. It's amazing.
So, what got you to choose that path?
Mm. COVID. COVID
Oh,
happened. I was working like a dog during COVID. It was so trying. It was so depressing. It was so painful. Wound up losing my father-in-law during COVID. He passed away from COVID. And I looked around and I thought, there are so many people who are just absolutely mentally breaking down from this. And so I decided to go back to school and become a nurse practitioner with a focus on mental health. I never thought I'd be a nurse practitioner. I thought, I'm going to be an RN from here until the end of my career. But there were so many people coming into the clinic who were just having full-blown mental breakdowns. They couldn't get in to see their psychiatrist. There was such a huge lack in my community for quality, available mental health care. And I was gravitating towards those patients. I loved sitting with them, listening to their stories, understanding what was going on, because some of these people would wait for hours. like 4 hours in line with people with COVID, coughing, everything. And they just wanted human interaction. They wanted some validation for what they were going through. And they were just going through so much depression. And that was just, I guess you could say, like a calling. I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to help people going through this. And so, I realized too, COVID was going to last a while. I looked around and I could tell this, buckle up, this is going to take a long time. So I might as well go to school. And I did, and I got done 2 years ago. And now I'm, running my own private practice. I have a lot of autonomy. It's amazing. And I can't stop saying amazing, but I'm so lucky that I fell into this. I mean, a lot of it was luck and making the best of a really awful, life-changing situation.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the loss. I mean,
Oh,
so many
thank
people lost people that they love during that time. And I think we're still kind of, I don't think we are completely recovered from the trauma of this. And it's interesting that you said it was like a different calling during that
you.
time. And I just spoke with Dotan from Wiz Therapy, and he said something very similar, and that he found his way through because of the shutdown. And same happened to me. I mean, I changed gears. I went back to school,
Yeah.
um, and got trained with educational therapy during the pandemic. So, and I opened the practice while we were in it, without having, doing assessments in my backyard because the schools were closed.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so, and I do see, because I think I can relate to what you say in the way that mental health, especially anxiety, I see in my area, because I also work with teens and young adults and adults, that
Yeah.
anxiety became the new pandemic.
Absolutely. And I think just the social isolation has been so painful. And kids, there's a lot of reasons why they're anxious, but I really do think that the pandemic was just life-changing during a time that kids really depend on socialization, going to school, seeing their friends, just growing up and figuring out who they are, on the long journey that everyone is on to figure out who they are. But um, kids are anxious all the time. And I think a lot of parents, they say, well, why are you so anxious? It's like, well, your kid grew up during a pandemic. Like that's why. That's one of the big reasons why we're going through massive changes in technology at the same time. There's a lot of reasons, but the spike in anxiety, I see that in almost all the kids I see. Depression also, depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And those are very closely related, especially because depression, you're seeing like a lot of hopelessness and helplessness, fear about the future and the uncertainty. And that's very anxiety provoking.
Yeah. And you know what? I was thinking about it because I reflect on this topic a lot. Even for me as a mom, of two teens, one is a preteen, but during during the shutdown, my son was in transitional kindergarten. He just started his way in elementary school and then March it, and that's it. And then many
Oh my
parents
gosh.
need to juggle maybe younger kids. And my older was in second grade. So you're juggling your work, you're juggling parenting, you're don't want to give them screams, but you don't have a choice. So, and it became, um, screens became part of the way our kids socialize.
Hmm.
And I don't see many teens, when we were young, going to, like, I would say, hanging out with our friends, right? After school. You don't see it as much.
Yeah.
So there is a shift in the way, like you said, with technology too. But also, we have to remember that we are still in this. And it's something that affects everybody worldwide. It's not just here in the US, a
Right.
little bubble called California, but it's everywhere. And our kids are still dealing with this and with these gaps of social skills and how to problem solve. And at some point, it's like we're trying to kind of, nobody like to feel uncomfortable, but
Right.
we also need to meet them where they're at and not
Mhm.
forget that. Yes, we're back to school. Yes. But we also need to meet them where they're at because developmentally we have some delays.
Yeah, we are in the fallout period of COVID. And I think it's a big mistake when people say, "Oh, well, the pandemic's over." Like you said, it's not over. We are in this really awful healing stage, and it's not, just get over it. Like especially with kids. I know kids now who are so far behind, and parents feel really guilty about that. They're very behind on reading, they're really behind on everything. And this is what happens when something so traumatic happens. This is trauma. Everyone's experiencing it. And kids specifically deal with trauma in different ways than adults do. They don't have those coping skills. I would argue a lot of adults don't have good coping skills either. But when you're growing, when you're learning, when your whole life is absolutely turned upside down, and you didn't go through those major milestones in the same way that you and I did, it's there's not enough compassion for what kids have gone through and how far behind they are. And it's not just one kid, it is all kids I'm seeing are very anxious now on some level.
Yeah. And I think you can see that also in the US testings that is done for academics, right? The state testing. We
Right.
see, yeah, reading was always kind of on the low side. But I feel like it's a little bit lower right now, especially with reading comprehension. During pandemic, there was not a lot of writing instruction, and our kids falling behind on essay writing, so they don't know how to summarize information or
Mhm.
organize their ideas. So I do see that in my area of expertise,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's fair to ask them to produce um, long essays or well-developed essay, like even in high school when they were in fifth grade or
Yeah.
sixth grade during pandemic. So they didn't have that experience.
Yeah. Fifth grade is when you learn to write a 5 paragraph essay. That
Yeah.
is fifth grade. That is like the big benchmark. And if you weren't getting that feedback, I remember getting one-on-one feedback from teachers' aides that would come in and help because it was such a huge undertaking for the whole class. They would have parents and teachers' aides come in and help with that and give feedback in real time and go over it with you and kind of ask questions about what your thought process was, giving constructive criticism, but having that one-on-one was so important. And a lot of kids, they missed out on that. And that was huge. And now in the era of ChatGPT, just give me the answer, summarize for me, that intentional thought is not going into things. Making mistakes is not something that's celebrated anymore in the same way.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We talk about it a lot of how important it is to make mistake because this is how the brain learns.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about how trauma looks different for kids?
Yes, absolutely. So, trauma in kids can look like irritability. It can crop up in strange interactions with parents. Um, I'll just give an example. I'm working with a family right now, and the kid is showing a lot of obstinate behaviors, intentionally, um, it's seemingly intentionally doing things. Mom says, do this, the kid goes in the opposite direction. And a lot of that is the kid is really fighting back with just not having a lot of choices in the same way that someone without trauma does have choices. And so when you experience trauma, it's not just the event, it's the echo afterwards. And trying to be heard, trying to get your point across. A lot of kids too give the feedback of, you're not listening to me. And that doesn't mean that the parent's not listening. The kid is telling you, I don't feel heard. I feel it doesn't feel like I have a lot of choices here. And I'm going to rebel in different ways that seem just awful for a parent. It's a meltdown in a public space. Sometimes it is physically lashing out. It can be a lot of things. It can be lying. Some of these kids, they seem like habitual liars, and part of it is a trauma response. And having it's different from adults. It can look a lot different.
Yeah, I worked with an adolescent um, this year,
Mm-hmm.
15 years old. And one of the things was um, there was definitely trauma that
Mm-hmm.
was not being treated.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and I think that one of the things that was happening was him deciding that he's not going to study anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not school refusal. He did go to school, but he
Yeah.
just sat there.
Yeah.
And another thing was started to um, you know, behave in a way that can be, challenging if for like if it's stealing or doing
Yes.
things that, are illegal per se, right?
Risk
So, and
taking.
risk
Yeah.
taking, yeah, that's what I was looking for. That, thank
Right.
you. So the risk taking behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking while you were talking, I was thinking about it, like, oh, this is a kid that was not being treated for his trauma.
Right. And, sometimes it looks like regression. Sometimes it's acting younger than your age. And I'll hear from parents, they say, you shouldn't be acting this way. You're 12 years old, you're 13, you know better. And when you're hearing that, because they're acting more childish, they're not acting their age, that's a trauma response also. And
Yeah,
so
the
it's
body is,
frustrating.
yeah, the body is not regulated,
Hmm.
and yeah, they use what they can with their, and it's like you said, it's not just the skills, it's also the developmental, the cognitive develop, like the developmental milestone in the brain, right? That
Right,
it, and it is altering the brain trauma.
right.
So we need to remember that as well.
Yeah. These kids are much more reactive too. They tend to have poor coping skills. And it's really extreme trauma. It seems like anything will set them off. And their actions are incredibly disproportionate to the event that's happening now that's, triggering a trauma response. They're very reactive. Sometimes they really isolate. Sometimes you'll see self-harm, a lot of crying. Nightmares also show up a lot in kids.
Can you, because when you and I kind of connected, we talked about neurodiversity, and um, many of our, I mean, the clients that we work with are neurodiverse, are ADHD, are autistic. So can you talk a little bit more? How will it look for them with relation to
Sure.
trauma? Because they
Yeah.
might have, like, school trauma. They might have kind of like social anxieties.
Right. So a lot of these kids, they wind up, so when you have neurodiversity, one of the big things that we think about is the amygdala and the activation of the amygdala. And so amygdala activity that is directly related to the stress response. So if your amygdala is overly excited, which it tends to be already in the neurodiverse population, if you are then ramping it up even higher from trauma and then from repeated trauma response because it's getting triggered, A lot of these people are going to be unable to relax. They're going to be quicker to anger. They're going to be quicker to a disproportionate response to things. So instead of, for instance, mom says, "Can you take out the trash? I've asked you a million times. Um, can you please do that?" In a neurodiverse population, sometimes the person will completely shut down, be crying inappropriately, say, "You're attacking me." And other times, maybe they throw something across the room, also really disproportionate. These are extreme examples of trauma. Other people who have ADHD who are experiencing trauma, they shut down, they socially isolate, they can't cope with just this constant overstimulation of the amygdala. And they are missing that ability to what we call like rest and digest, just calm down. It's just constant overstimulation.
So how does it work with those that are have sensory integration challenges? Because that will affect that big time.
Absolutely. They're not able to ground themselves. They wind up falling behind in school that much faster. They have behavioral outbursts. Um, they're not able to really engage with the learning process. And they're not open to new ideas in the same way. They lack a lot of, the big theme is lack of motivation. Their motivation that's already hard with ADHD, that's already difficult with neurodiverse individuals, that motivation just absolutely plummets. And they wind up being really depressed. And they say, "Why am I so depressed?" Well, this is why.
And we also need to I just want to remind our listeners that when that part of the brain is in this like flight, like when we
Mhm.
know the freeze, the fight, then it is not communicating with the front part of the brain, which is the decision making, what we
Right.
call the executive functioning. So everything related to task initiation, everything related to sustained attention. And this is why many people that do have trauma or PTSD will look like they have ADHD. They will look like there is challenges with attention because they're not regulated, because they're
Absolutely.
on, um, they're scanning their surrounding. The brain is scanning the surrounding all the time. It's like they're
Right.
not in a rest place. They're not in the calm place. So
Right.
you and I had a really interesting conversation. One of the things that, not that this is not, don't get me wrong, I love where we're going with this, but one of the things that I really enjoyed, talking with you the other day that we kind of, connected was that you said that um, you would like to see more people doing hobbies that are more tangible,
Yes.
they're more tactile.
Yes.
So can you
Absolutely.
tell me a little bit more about your background with like the hobby piece? What kind of enlightened that light bulb in your mind that said, "Oh, you know what? We need to go back to this. We need to go back to like working with our hands, creating, and how it relates to healthcare
Yeah.
and the topic of that we talk about, which is trauma or anxiety or depression, right? Mental
Right.
health."
Well, the thing that really got me excited about it was when I was working in an adolescent treatment center and they did art therapy, and that was a huge part of their treatment plan. And so was music therapy. And if you ask any teenager, what their favorite classes are in school, they tend to be the creative classes. And the reason why is because they're able to express themselves. And as we become adults, just because that's not really valued in the same way as with children and expressing yourself, a lot of adults wind up devaluing hobbies and special interests beyond work because work, there's a lot of value placed on work. And with kids, I noticed that the tactile activities like kneading clay, brushing paint, or weaving, things that you're actually touching your hands with, maybe you're also playing guitar, so you're plucking the strings of the guitar. These are things that wind up activating both the somatosensory and the motor cortex. So both sides of the brain are being activated. And this winds up grounding your attention to the present moment. It helps you also feel more creative. You're getting a lot of dopamine that's being released when you're doing these things. And so that's positive reinforcement. You're feeling good about it. And you're also dealing with a lot of the emotions that maybe come up through painting, especially when it's art therapy or music therapy. It's not just painting or doing art. You actually are trying to work towards a purpose with the therapist through uncovering trauma, through expressing feelings that you've really buried that are hard to express in other ways. And it's the tactile stimulation that I really think we are just missing in so much of education now. And just then, after it's not really being valued in education, it's being carried into adulthood. And it's so important to find a hobby that you are actually, I mean, reading is a great hobby, right? And that's wonderful. But I really emphasize to my clients that they need to find something tactile, something that is engaging their body.
Yeah, even like, work in the garden.
Yeah. Touch the dirt.
Yeah, the ground is
Absolutely.
grounding.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still learning a lot about neuroplasticity. Um, and the connection between old school, right, left and right brain. But when you are engaging both sides of the brain, that's also really important. And so, for instance, I like to paint, so I give that as a big example. When you have someone painting, they are doing spatial reasoning. You're figuring out, how big should this building in my painting be compared to the trees in the front? Fine motor control. So actually holding on to that paintbrush, being able to move on the canvas. And then there's also like the emotional interpretation that's going on of what you're painting, what you're thinking about. Maybe you're listening to some good music in the background as you're doing it. And so all of those things, you're creating this interconnective matrix between your brain hemispheres. And it just winds up snowballing. It winds up helping you improve mood. It winds up making it easier to tap into this again. You're getting those dopamine rushes that's really reinforcing that this hobby is helping you. But I think all of it's initiated through just the tactile stimulation.
It's interesting that you said that because I'm a big fan of polyvagal theory.
Mhm.
And I do studied it quite a bit. And one of the things that in my line of work is that I play games with my clients, and no matter how old they are. I mean, we
Yeah.
play Uno Attack, we play different kind of like games. And I do need to explain parents that your child will say I'm playing games with them, which is true
Hmm.
because, but it's not like it's without a purpose.
Right.
um it's in a therapeutic setting, so I play games because I want to see how your child is dealing with frustrations. I want to see how they are planning. Do they strategize? What is their strategy?
Mhm.
Maybe we will take it to writing after that, and they will have to write a paragraph about the compare and contrast of two games, right? So I feel like I'm with you on that there is so much into like, oh, just academic, just reading, just writing. No, there is more to it. I have kids here, that teenagers, that we work on a research, we write on a research, and then they develop a game out of it, or they're making, building something. I have a client right now, it's really funny. And it's fantastic. I work with him. I love all my clients. They're all fantastic. This guy, I've been working with him since he was in second grade. Now he's in seventh. So we are together for a while. And neurodiverse, of course. And when he's doing a research now about some kind of like war machine from Greek, you know. I was like, I would never go there, right? Like between the Greek and the Romans and the wars, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. So he's writing about it. He's writing an essay. And the next thing that he said he wants to do is to build one.
Oh, wow.
It's like a claw. And I'm like, okay, cool. You tell me what you need. I'm gonna buy materials and we do that. So I think that when you are using this kind of like tactile and you go back to your hands and you are working between, and I agree with you, there is this like left brain, right brain, like making the connection stronger.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
um and this is fun. Why learning needs to be boring?
Right, right. Absolutely. Things can be fun. A big part of recruiting kids to wanting to do treatment, to engage treatment, is making it fun. If it's boring, they don't want to show up and they don't want to give you the
I
time
don't
of
want to
day.
show up.
Yes.
I
And
don't
some
want to listen to myself.
And it could be a great bargaining chip too. I mean, I've noticed that a lot of kids like to make a deal. They love making a deal, negotiating. And so a lot of my autistic clients, they love playing chess with me, and they love beating me and telling me how terrible I am at
Oh, I'm
chess.
terrible at chess too.
They love it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm terrible at chess, absolutely. And then seeing how they interact. And, I say, okay, you can beat me at chess because that's what's going to happen. But then we have to talk about this situation. We have to talk about these things. And so that's a compromise. We're not just going to play chess. We're also going to do this.
Mhm.
And then after we talk for a certain amount of time, we'll play again. And then as we're playing, we're talking through things as well.
Yes.
And it's a way, you're kind of disguising it and making it more fun, and they look forward to seeing you because it's not, part of mental health care. It's not just straight business. It's not, uh, you do have to make it fun and playful for kids. That's is so important.
Also for adults, I feel
Adults,
like
yeah.
like and this is what we can I do have a follow-up question, especially when we talk about adults, because you are
Hmm.
working with adults as well, and then also am I, is that you know, in our time today, and I just had a conversation about this yesterday with another colleague, is that uh, many people think that hobbies are just extra. They are optional. They are, or they don't. We don't have time for this. We're too busy to do this.
Hmm.
And how it is, I mean, how can we help um, the adults that we work with to understand this is your self-care kind of option?
I tell them engaging in the hobby is part of your mental health care and your mental health plan. And that kind of gives them permission in a way. They feel like they now have permission, which you don't need, but they have permission to engage in this thing. Oh, Dr. K said this is fine. I can do this as part of my mental, so now I can do it, which is so funny to me. But okay, great. That's helpful. But I do believe it that when you are engaging in a hobby, you are showing self-respect. You are gaining some amount of control in your life. And it really helps with people who don't feel like they have control in their lives in a lot. And, some people don't. Um, but the definition of what a hobby is that it's an activity that's done repeatedly. One of three things. It's one for pleasure, it's one for personal interest, or it's for relaxation. And those three things are ways that you are able to improve your mental health. So, once again, it's pleasurable for you, it's something that is of personal interest, and then also it can be relaxing. And so, when you explain that to someone, okay, one of the big things that you're dealing with is really high anxiety. So, we're going to find ways that you can find a healthy way to channel that energy in order to promote relaxation. That's why we're doing this hobby. We are doing this hobby because you're feeling really depressed. You've chronically had low mood. You really like to, do horseback riding. That brings you pleasure. Let's start tapping into that again. Are you interested in this thing compared to your job being something that you feel is like quite monotonous, something that you just have to do? Let's do a hobby that interests just you, that's just for you. And that is what mental health care looks like compared to something that's like a physical rehab.
Interesting that you say that, because I'm thinking about, the like I'm trying to like in my mind, I'm like comparing between adulthood and childhood. Like as
Yeah,
parents, we are always like looking for activities for our kids,
right,
but and we want them to try many things. But as adults, do we do it for ourselves?
right. We don't. You are so, especially when you become a parent, the focus completely shifts away from you and it's completely on your kid. And I understand that. But that doesn't mean that it's okay to completely neglect yourself. And you can also do a hobby with your kid. You can introduce them to something. You could do it together. That could be wonderful. It doesn't have to be something you just do by yourself, but it should be something you do for yourself with intention, in the same way that you would go to the gym, not for someone else, but for yourself to feel better. And that is what mental health care is. It's not silly. It's something that is very real. It's something that's undervalued in our society. But if you're breaking down and you are neglecting your mental health and you're kicking it down the road, it absolutely will catch up to you and will very quickly start to have physical effects on every aspect of your life. And this is how you treat it. You have to prioritize self care and you have to prioritize slowing down and tapping into what things make you happy.
I think
And
you're
hobbies is so easy. It's such an easy, low-hanging fruit in order to start getting you excited about life again.
yeah, and you touched like that the idea of slowing down.
Hmm.
We rush everywhere and we live in this hectic um and like if you're not busy, something is wrong with you. So
Right.
we live in this really hectic society, I believe. I'm looking on my week and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. And then at the end of the day, I'm exhausted, or at the end of the day, I'm just exhausted and I don't want to do any hobby, which is fine. You don't have to do your hobby at the end of the day.
Right.
But can you find like an hour for yourself over the weekend or 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Especially for, I'm thinking about new parents that have a baby.
Yeah. Right. And that
That's really hard.
absolutely. And maybe when you're a new parent and you have a kid, you are exhausted. You can't engage in the same hobbies to the same level that you would when you were single, before you had a kid, and that's okay too. Finding ways that you can engage in hobbies for shorter amounts of time that maybe aren't the same, but making time for yourself in order to rest because like I said, hobbies, one of the main points is about relaxation, quieting the mind, being able to take a moment for yourself. I knew a nurse. Nursing is incredibly stressful. It is so hard physically and mentally on the body. And I really emulated this nurse. She was a new mom. She had a 2 year old at home, and she also was a brand new mom. She had, I want to say, a kid under one. And she had such a great attitude about everything. And I thought, wow, she has it going on. I really want to be like this nurse. And she had this hobby, and she said, I know it's silly, but I do it just for me. And I do it when I put my kids down to sleep in the short amounts of time, either in the evening when they go to bed or for nap time. And she said, I pull out this craft that I do and I do it. And I turn on some music and I just do it for me. It's not physically demanding. It's very pretty. I looked it up. It's kind of like, how you would do like a coloring book and you would color all the different pages. Um, it's sheets with a design on it, and she was bejeweling it. It's very beautiful. It's not
It's
necessarily something
fun.
I would do, but she loved it. And the way she would light up when she would talk about it. And I thought, this girl's mental health is so stable because she's taking time during these little she sees these breaks not necessarily as a time to shut down and go to sleep, which a lot of new parents, I don't judge you for doing that. Rest is important. But she decided to take her rest time and do this, take it another step. And that I think was really showing a lot of compassion for herself. That was a very mature thing to be doing. And it brought a lot of balance to her life.
I was trying, I had some clients. I remember I tried it with an adult and I did it also with a child who is a teenager.
Mhm.
And I taught them Zentangles. So for our listeners, Zentangles is like you're doing different type of designs and patterns, and you
Mm.
just need a piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. It's very repetitive,
Mhm.
and it actually really helps you to kind of clear your mind because you don't really need to plan what you're going to do, how it's going to look like. You're just going with the flow. So it's very, it has like a meditation effect.
Yeah.
And I remember my client came here, she was very upset that day. She was not regulated before our session. And I just said, okay, here's what you're going to do. Are you game? We don't need to do anything. We're just going to do this.
Yeah.
And she says, yes. And after like 5 or 10 minutes of just doing this, she was able to work on her writing. So it was very, it was regulating for her.
Right. Hobbies don't have to always have a point. Sometimes it is just well, I mean, I guess you could argue that like self-regulation is the point, but it's not work. It's not something that has to have an end point. It's something that's just sometimes soothing in the moment.
Yeah, same with play, right? Play is
Right.
part of regulating the nervous system.
Yeah.
And we can play as adults. We don't need to say, oh, we don't have time for this. Yes, play and art is important. I
Yeah.
do have a question for you. You know,
Sure.
because I work with many clients that have this perfectionist um, trait,
Hmm.
and they are their worst enemy. They're criticizing themselves all the time. I always
Right.
tell them, this is not Picasso time. You do you,
Yes.
boo. But but it's not Picasso time. So they often feel maybe blocked because they're
Yeah.
criticizing themselves. So
Right.
how do you dissolve this? How can you help them to move on and not just judge themselves?
Sometimes it's helpful to do it in a group, an activity together. One thing I think about is it's really popular right now to do those paint and sip classes where people get, if you heard about this, people
Yeah.
get together, they're drinking some wine and everyone winds up painting the same thing together as a class. And it's usually not particularly great, but you're with other people that are equally probably beginners, not very great at doing it. And that's a really uh, helpful way for some people who are perfectionists to get into it because it's non-judgmental. And I'm also not promoting that you need to do an
Wine.
activity with alcohol in order to.
I'm like,
I'm not,
I don't drink
not
wine,
at
but I
all.
can sip water.
Right. But I'm talking about the social aspect of
Yeah, yeah.
things. And people are there to just have fun and do an activity together that they're not great at mutually. Sometimes it's a cooking class, or sometimes I'm trying to also think of like non-alcoholic examples where everyone's kind of learning. It could be a pottery class that you take
Mm-hmm.
with other people. And when you see other people are equally struggling at something, that can be very helpful instead of just doing it by yourself.
Or knitting groups.
Yeah, knitting groups, absolutely.
I know
When,
some libraries offer them or
yeah,
community centers.
yeah. And
Yeah, and kids can knit also. My niece is
absolutely.
knitting.
It's the social isolation that tends to exacerbate some of these symptoms of perfectionism. And
Mm.
I think that when you're with a group and you're with other people that are your same skill level, it gets easier. But at the same time, some of these people shy away from groups. And so really pushing yourself to even do that can be hard. But that's what I recommend.
Yeah, we are social creatures. We need
Yeah.
other people around us. And you don't have to be in a group. You can just ask a friend or a sibling or a parent
Yeah.
if they want to join you.
Yeah.
Okay, so for our listeners who want to use creativity for self-care, but they don't know where to start, what's your advice?
Um, So these would be people that know that they want to make a change, but they are trying to figure out how to do it. One of the great resources of today that we have is Meetup. I am a big fan of Meetup. Um, and if you type in different types of activities, or even if you're just perusing Meetup for things that are going on in the area, that can be very helpful. Checking out your local library if there's any types of groups that are meeting. If you want to try something solo, just by yourself, I've recommended to clients go to Michael's. Go to Michael's, walk around and find something that catches your eye, like a craft. Sometimes they have like crafts in a box. Do that. Just bring it home. Um, some people who are religious, there's religious groups who are also involved in things like quilting circles, things like that. If you live near an outdoor area, or for instance, like let's say you live near a pickleball court, that's huge right now. And pickleball is incredibly social. It is not very hard, and it's all different ages, all different abilities. And a lot of pickleball is sitting by the side of the court and socializing with people, building up your confidence. Um, Take a class in something new. Try to explore your city, wherever you live. Um, Also ask friends. That's also really important. Is there anything that you do outside of work that you enjoy to do? Anything you recommend? That's like a starting point that I would tell anyone.
Yeah, and just like grabbing coloring book, painting
Yeah.
rocks, cut
Painting.
magazines.
Yeah. Anything. And there's a lot of online communities where people share some of the stuff that they are creating. It's on Facebook, on Reddit, they're able to kind of show the work that they're doing and kind of get that encouragement online. Um, but I do recommend trying to do things offline also. Do the activity offline, but maybe share online or share in a group or with friends and whatnot offline.
Yeah, guys, Thanksgiving is around the corner. Go get some, learn how to do some flower arrangement.
Yeah, that's a
Something
great
with
one.
pumpkins.
Yeah,
Collect leaves and glue them on stuff.
yeah,
You can do
I,
that with your kids too.
yeah, absolutely. During the pandemic, when I was really searching for an outlet, a creative outlet, I found a website called Skillshare. And Skillshare is where artists and creative people, it's like a subscription service, but people post videos. There's also free videos like
Yeah,
on
YouTube.
YouTube, sure. But I was looking for something more specific. And so different artists were teaching classes. And so you pay the subscription fee and you have access to all of these different classes. And I still do it. And I learned a lot of techniques about watercolors, anything you can imagine. But they have a lot of different types. Patreon also offers
Mhm.
that for creative types. Um, there's just it's so endless. And I think when patients make the mistake of saying, I've tried everything, I think, no, that's not possible. You have not tried everything. There are so many more things, but maybe you're just blocked. And so I give some recommendations, but um, reach out to friends and loved ones also for inspiration.
Yeah, so I want to share with our listeners what I did. And so painting rocks was something that I did during pandemic, and I left them for neighbors to take. And I say take one that makes you
Oh,
happy, and they can take it and put it around the neighborhood. And it's nice. Even today, I still see my rocks when I walk my dog. I'm like, oh,
oh my gosh.
wow, that acrylic was so good. It didn't like fade. And what else were we? Oh, yeah, I just met with two of my friends, and it was just, very spontaneous. And we my friend won this like um I don't know, she never mind. She won something, and it was like you said, like at Michael's when you're like creating in a box,
Yeah,
and it was like a plant that it's like air plant, and you
yeah.
decorate the glass. Super cool, you guys. Now I have this gorgeous thing, and you don't need to water it all the time if you put it in your bathroom because it gets all that.
It, it's so funny you brought up the painted rocks thing. When I was in Girl Scouts, I must have been like, I don't know, 8 years old or something like that. We had the most amazing troop leader, and she was so creative. And so we were on this camping trip, and there was a lot of downtime during the day. Like, what are we going to do? We already set up camp. And so she had us go and search around for rocks in, this campground. And she brought out acrylics and we painted whatever we wanted. And it was around like Father's Day. So we painted something for our dads. And then we had some type of glue and we glued seashells on it also. And then she wound up spraying it with some type of like, I want to say like a shellac, like some type of thing to really lock that acrylic down onto the rock. My father kept that rock it was a paperweight. He kept it on his desk for something like 20 years. And I was
Whoa.
so embarrassed because, I was a teenager and then I was in my 20s. And I was like, Dad, you still have this goofy little painted rock on your desk all the time with these little ocean and this really poorly drawn dolphin jumping out of the water. And he said, I treasure it so much. And every time I look at it, I am just so happy. And I thought that was just so funny. And parents really wind up cherishing their kids' artwork. And so I do recommend when you find something that's a hobby, something that you like to do, pass that on to kids
Hmm.
and it is just something that grows. Your hobby and what you do can be something that does affect other people.
He does. And if you sew or knit,
Yeah,
you guys, winter season is around the corner. It's
yeah,
getting cold outside. Make those blankets, make
yeah,
those scarves.
yeah,
We need them.
yeah.
And if you don't want to gift it to your family and friends, there are places if you want to do something. I know a group that does quilts for animal shelters.
Hmm.
I know a place they do quilts for and crochet for newborn and NICUs.
Yeah.
So you can donate for homeless people if you need socks. Yeah, just if you don't want to keep it, I get it. You can donate it and it
Absolutely.
will be appreciated.
Yeah.
And with that note, though, like with all of my guests, I can just keep talking with you. This is so fun. Um, what do you believe, like, do you want to share with our listeners before we finish up?
Um, don't give up on trying something new, even if you're not good at it at first. It's a learning process. It's about the journey, not the destination. That's really important. And also know that some hobbies are things that you appreciate and that you want to do for a season. It's not something like a job that you do every day, all throughout the year, 365 days. Some things are like cozy hobbies that you might do in winter, and then you put them on the shelf for the summer months and you do another hobby. And so be open to things. Don't be discouraged if you wind up abandoning a hobby for some period of time and just, you know, put yourself out there. You might wind up finding that you enjoy something that you never would have tried otherwise. And be compassionate towards yourself and tell yourself, this is a part of my mental health journey. This is a part of self-care. It's trying new things and not giving up.
You know what the husbands or partners of ADHD will say? You're giving our
Giving them permission.
mission to hoard more
Yes.
craft.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm one of those people who has a million crafts.
Me
But
too.
but if
I
it's the
have a
right,
shelves of boxes of craft.
your husband will understand and you can reframe it and
Or
say, I'm
wife.
working on my mental health. Or wife, absolutely. Your family members, they will understand that I'm doing this with intention to bring joy into my life and your life. Sometimes it's messy, but I'm doing this as part of self-care, and I need this in my life right now, in a life that's so busy and overwhelming.
Yeah, just don't use acrylics on the floor. Not a good
Clean up.
idea.
Yes, you
Clean
have to
after
clean up
yourself.
after yourself. Clean up after yourself.
Don't use like sprays. Hold on. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you from my personal experience
Yeah. Some of these are outdoor activities only.
with the mop.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Kathryn.
for
It was
having me.
absolutely delightful conversation.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.